Hello, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And today we've got the May Roundup for you.
Yes.
It is that time of the month, about when we usually do this, the beginning of the next month or the end of the month that we're doing the Roundup for.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of movies watched in May, by myself at least. I don't know about you.
Not as many as the month before. The month before we had Nick Cage marathon, because
right.
we were putting together that, and then we immediately followed that with a Tom Cruise basically marathon. So that was a big month for me. A little bit of the Tom Cruise stuff snuck into this month, but I watched half as many movies this month as I did or in May as I did in June, or not June.
Wow.
April.
Did I finally beat you 1 month?
April,
then?
I had 32, and May went down to 16. So you must have beaten me. How many did you watch?
29.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep. You kept the pace going.
I've been very consistent at like one movie a day for a while now. I'm usually between like 28 and like 32 or something. But for those of you who have never joined us for a roundup before, we review new movies, new shows. We do some lists as our kind of regular cadence. But we also watch a lot of stuff that we don't review, a lot of old movies maybe that we're discovering for the first time or rewatching and re-experiencing. And we like to talk about those too. So we take this time during the roundup to talk about all the movies, or a lot of the movies at least, that we did not review over the course of the last month, but that we watched over the course of the past roughly 30 days. And we've broken those into 4 categories to kind of give some type of structure to this exercise. Dylan, do you want to tell the people what those categories are?
Yes, so we do best new watch, best rewatch, dud of the month, and then one that stuff that we just have to talk about. So those 4 categories are kind of the broad groups. And we talked about in the past, actually, or we've mentioned is sometimes having to fill those categories actually kind of inspires me to maybe rewatch something that I wouldn't have rewatched, or, like take a chance on something. If it gets to the end of the month and I've only been watching critically acclaimed, really good movies, it's like, well, I got to come up with a dud of the month, or maybe I should try. So maybe I'll take a chance on this like B-level thing, or maybe I will rewatch this movie that I wouldn't have, but I need something to, for a rewatch. So it's kind of a nice thing to just also kind of keep us not just only watching new movies all the time.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Especially with the rewatch as well. You got to rewatch some movies, and I do have one that I think you'll be happy about in my rewatch list. But let's dive right into best new watch of May. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. Both of my new watches are about dreams. The first one is the documentary Hoop Dreams from
I saw you watch this.
1994. Very critically acclaimed. It won the Audience Award at 1994 Sundance Film Festival. It's one of Roger Ebert's, I think, 10 favorite movies ever. And
of the 90s.
Of the 90s, that was it. Yes, that was the list you sent me. It is very long. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes, and that was edited down from,
I thought it was like 3.5.
Well, but I think it was edited down from like 200 plus hours of like some insane amount of footage, because basically they follow.
I would imagine,
the film follows the lives of 2 inner city Chicago boys who struggle to become college basketball players on the road to going professional. So this is about William Gates and Arthur Agee. Those names might not be familiar, but basically it follows them. We meet them end of middle school, beginning of high school. We follow them through all 4 of their high school years, and then as they go on to college, and we meet we spend a lot of time with their family, their friends. And honestly, it's just a really, really, really well-made documentary. And just the fact that it came out in 1994, I'm sure it was very inspirational and kind of maybe set the tone for future documentaries to come, especially like sports documentaries like this. Maybe it was like the blueprint, but like, honestly, I went in kind of expecting it to be really good. So like, trying to stay objective, but it's just really fantastic. I mean, it's just, I don't know, you'd have to just not have a soul to not like become invested in these kids. And like, they take very different routes. And the one has like an older brother who had his moment and it didn't work out. So like, you're watching the scenes where he's watching his younger brother like in these big games, like he knows truly how high the stakes are. Like everyone knows, but like he really knows. And it's just like there's just so many different layers to like everything that's going on. And then like the basketball scenes, especially in their senior year, like triumphant moments, heartbreaking moments. I mean, I was right there for all of it. Fantastic. I actually gave this 5 stars, first 5-star movie in a while.
I saw that.
It's a little easier for documentaries to reach that 5-star threshold, I think.
Yeah. Also, just because I don't feel like I have as good of an understanding of what goes into making a documentary, or like what necessarily makes one good or just
good.
Kind of
what's the line between good and great? Like,
yes, exactly.
It's not as easy to define with a documentary.
Because so much of it is just like, did you find this like really interesting and informative?
Yeah.
And this is true. Oh my God.
Yes. And like, did it, emotionally, did you connect with the characters? Like, well, I did, because they're real people. So it was, pretty easy to connect with them. But yeah, it was just fantastic. So that was my first new watch, was Hoop Dreams, 1994. I gave that 5 stars. And then my second best new watch was Field of Dreams. Rest in peace to Ray Liotta. Unfortunately, we learned of his passing, and that inspired me to go on a little Ray Liotta marathon, just some stuff that I haven't seen. And you've been telling me about Field of Dreams, that I should watch it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it just worked out. So from 1989, Kevin Costner, let's see who else is in this. James Earl Jones, Ray Liotta. Ray Liotta plays Shoeless Joe Jackson, the baseball player. And honestly, I totally just got caught up in the sappiness and the sweetness. I just couldn't help it. It was like, because it's so earnest, and it starts like right away, like after the credits, he starts hearing the voice, and it's just immediately, it's just like there's something magical going on here. And then once they go to, and you meet James Earl Jones's character, his portrayal of Terrence Mann, the writer. That was a great addition. I was like, James Earl Jones just killing it. He's funny. He's kind of imposing. And then once he like kind of becomes like Kevin Costner's partner, and he's like along for the ride, it's just like, yes. Like, I can't wait for him to see the baseball players. I can't wait for him. Right. And then we get Burt Lancaster in his last role ever. And he gets to literally like fittingly like walk into the cornfield and disappear on like his last, like, come on. It's just so good. And then I just really love how at the end it all circles back to, it's just about like parents. It's about like, everybody had dreams when they were younger, and you need to realize that your parents weren't just always old. And like it's just a very intergenerational understanding theme. And I just really liked it. And it has a lot of baseball, and the baseball was well done too. And it was just really good. So I gave that a 4.5. Field of Dreams. I really liked it.
That makes me so happy that you finally watched and loved this movie.
Yes.
A couple things I wanted to add on it. Just the scene in Chisholm, Minnesota, when he walks into the streets and
it's like a flashback kind of.
Like Graham is like a ghost, or he kind of goes back in time. That's just so good. And then there's lots of really funny banter in the movie. It's not a comedy, but it's funnier than you'd think. And then here's a fun fact. Terrence Mann, the fictional author played by James Earl Jones, is based on J.D. Salinger.
Okay, yeah.
Who wrote Catcher in the Rye. And then the book that he wrote that Kevin Costner's character mentions, called The Boat Rocker, like when they're in the car, and says he read that book and then never played catch with his dad again. That is basically their stand-in for Catcher in the Rye.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And that scene is so funny because like, why'd you stop talking to your dad? Or like, what happened? And it's when I read The Boat Rocker by Terrence Mann. Never played catch with him again. He's, oh God.
I know. He immediately, it's like, don't put that on me.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of crap people are always trying to lay on me. And then the monologue, the James Earl Jones's monologue on the baseball field is just one of the best ever.
So good. So he was perfect for that role, and it was exactly what was needed. Yeah. So that was fantastic. So those are my best new watches.
Awesome.
Hoop Dreams and Field of Dreams. Over to you.
Those are I still need to watch Hoop Dreams, but that's a really nice 1-2 punch of
I thought so.
Of sports movies there. So I have 3 movies that I gave a 4.5 to this month. And all 3 of them are new movies in theaters in 2022. And we haven't reviewed any of these on the channel yet because I saw 2 of them at the Minneapolis Film Festival, and the other one was a foreign movie that had like a 2-week stretch at the Lagoon here in Minneapolis. And I'm the only one of the 3 of us that saw any of these. And then kind of a busy month. I wasn't able to do, I thought about doing some of the 60-second reviews and kind of expanding on that, which I might eventually, but those 3 movies are, and so yeah, they're currently my top 3 movies of 2022. And so I'll go in order of, I'll go 3 to 1 here.
Right, yeah.
So the first one I want to talk about is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
Oh, yes. I saw you love this.
It's part of it might just be because I saw it in a sold out theater and everyone was laughing at like every joke. And I don't remember the last time I experienced that.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time, but if you're not familiar with that one, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is based on some YouTube shorts made by Jenny Slate and some other people from like 10 years ago. Very popular on YouTube for a while back when we were in college. And they made a movie out of it. So Marcel is an adorable 1-inch tall shell who ekes out a colorful existence with his grandmother Connie and their pet Lint, Alan. Once part of a sprawling community of shells, they now live alone as the sole survivors of a mysterious tragedy. But when a documentary filmmaker discovers them amongst the clutter of his Airbnb, the short film he posts online brings Marcel millions of passionate fans, as well as unprecedented dangers and a new hope at finding his long-lost family.
Okay.
This rivals Paddington in terms of like just cuteness and adorable main character kind of thing. And it's so funny and so heartfelt and so surprisingly relevant for like right now in terms of like isolation and the internet and like community. It's just got really good themes and it's really well executed. It's incredibly creative with how they portray the shells as living, like just the kind of things they use around the house. Like for an example, there's just this broken jar of honey that's in the middle of the kitchen floor that they just leave there. And then whenever they got to like climb up to something high, they just sort of rub their shoes in the honey and walk up the wall.
Okay. All right.
Things like that. And
so it's very clever.
It's very clever. There's a bit where they tie a string to like a blender or like an egg beater or something, and then turn that on, and the string is tied to like the apple tree outside.
Oh, okay.
So like they'll turn that on, and then they get like 3 or 4 apples whenever that just fall out of the tree. It's very clever and very funny, and that movie is actually coming to theaters on June 24th. So we'll either have a review of it up before then or right after it comes out once you and Adam can get a chance to see it, but highly recommended. And that's really just one to take like the whole family too. Really, it's just fantastic. Yes,
nice.
And then the second one is Petite Maman by Celine Ciama, who also made Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which was a movie that all 3 of us gave 5 stars to back in 2019. And Celine Ciama is pretty much establishing herself as one of my favorite writer-directors. I mean, with Petite Maman, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Girlhood is a very good movie. She was also one of the screenwriters for My Life as a Zucchini.
Oh, okay.
An animated movie from a few years ago that's just really, really good. And Petite Maman is only, God, what is it? It's 72 minutes long.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's just short. Yeah, a little girl who's like 8 years old. Her grandma dies, and she goes with her parents to her grandma's cottage in the woods to kind of clean it out. Okay. And they're there for a few days. And then her mom just like can't take it and bolts. And then she meets a little girl in the woods, and they just kind of start hanging out, and they're both the same age. And it's just kind of their way of like connecting and dealing with the tragedy that's happening. And I don't want to say any more about it than that, but it is
that's enough.
One of the sweetest and most like economical movies I've ever seen. It's just Celine Ciama does these things where she can just like twist the camera slightly, or just a character gives a look, and she makes it so easy to connect with her characters. There's just a really good scene when the mom is driving and the girl's sitting in the back seat behind her, where the camera is just like in the passenger seat basically, and just on the mom's face while she's driving. And the daughter is like eating a snack in the back seat, and she's sharing it with her mom by just like, she puts her hand forward, and then her mom like eats some of the food out of her hand, and then she's got a juice box that she like puts forward, and her mom takes a drink out of it. But the camera only shows the mom's face, and then you just see the girl's hand come forward.
Yeah.
And it's just so nice
Mm-hmm.
and sweet, and it's just so well made, and it's like beautiful fall colors. It's like in the middle of this forest in the fall with like yellow leaves, orange, red, yellow leaves everywhere. It's just a beautiful movie. And again, it's only 72 minutes long. If you want to try to like venture into something like a foreign movie, if you don't really do that very often, I would highly recommend giving this a try once it's available on streaming, or if you can still find it in theaters anywhere. It's just fantastic. Also gave that a 4.5.
Nice. Before we move on, I just wanted to ask, one of my favorite parts of Portrait of a Lady on Fire was just visually, I felt like it was one of the most beautiful movies I've ever looked at. Like the textures and all the shots and the colors. Like, does that come through in Petite Maman as well? Like, is it maybe in a different way, or is that just like her style, I guess? I mean, I'll want to see this for myself.
This is weird because we're on camera, but give me a second. There's something I have that I want to show you.
Okay, that works. I will just hold it down here by myself. As you can see, if you've seen other episodes, I am reusing the background that I found after we did the Princess Mononoke review, because I just find it very pleasant. All right, Nate, you're back.
Yes, I am. You did this to me last episode, so
that's true. I did. Yeah.
So as a like promotional giveaway, when I went to the screening of this, they were giving out like painted postcards of art from Petite Maman. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this super well, but like, they like, there's that scene, and then there's a really nice one from like when they're in a little boat on the lake. And apologies to people just listening to this on the podcast, but they gave some nice artwork, so I wanted to include that for the YouTube audience. That was just really cool. And I mean, I thought of that when you asked like how it was filmed. I just think it reminded me a lot. I could just tell that it was made by the same person as.
Okay, I guess that answers my questions.
Yeah.
Could you tell that it was like, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, nice, interesting. Well, I'm really intrigued by that. I really want to check that one out.
And that one made it into my top 200. I don't remember exactly where I have it, but it's in there. And then the best movie I saw this month was an Iranian movie called Hit the Road, which also played at the Minneapolis Film Festival. And it's 93 minutes long. It's the directorial debut of Panahi. I'm probably butchering that, but I don't know. I gave it my best. Called Hit the Road. A chaotic family is on a road trip across a rugged landscape. In the back seat, dad has a broken leg. Mom tries to laugh when she's not holding back tears, and the youngest keeps exploding into car karaoke. Only the older brother is quiet. So it's basically you meet this family, and they're on a road trip, and the older brother's like early 20s, and the younger brother's like 6. So there's a big age gap, and they don't ever fully tell you why they're in the car. I mean, like they kind of do, but they don't give you all the details.
Interesting.
You just you eventually discover. I'm hesitant to like say too much about this, but you eventually discover that they're trying to get the oldest son out of the country.
Interesting.
And that's as far into it as I'll go. But it holds a lot back, and it really unfolds in a very nice way where it doesn't tell you, it doesn't just shout, this is what's happening, here it is. It doesn't have a weird scene where one character just kind of says something to another that you'd think like they already both know this. Why are they,
Yep.
It's just a wonderful movie. And I had this below Petite Maman after seeing it for the first time, but I've thought about this movie a lot since I saw it. I had it as a 4 right away, but like, I think literally the next day I put it up to a 4.5. And then like 5 days later, I was like, I'm still thinking about this. And put it up to my top movie of 2022 so far. It's just wonderful. It's currently playing at the St. Anthony Main Theater in Minneapolis. If people want to go check it out, I don't know how much longer it's going to be there. the performances from the parents are Oscar worthy, and the kid, this is gonna make or break it for a lot of people. He's a little annoying,
Okay,
but it works for me, especially as the movie went along. I thought he got funnier as it went along. The cinematography in this movie is really interesting, where it starts up with, you get a lot of close shots in the car, but then when they get some shots like later and more like pivotal scenes, the director does this thing where he like pulls way back and does this huge wide shot with a still camera that just doesn't move, and you're like far enough away where you can't see anybody's face. They're just kind of like silhouettes, and you can hear everything clearly, and you just see it play out with this wide thing where like everybody's on the screen but you can't see their faces. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that before. And it was really cool. And there's one scene in particular that ended up being like tragic and very comedic at the same time because of the way he filmed it. And then there's just a wonderful, like magical realism kind of scene with the dad and the youngest kid later in the movie. It's just really phenomenal. And it's stuck with me I saw this like 3 weeks ago now, and I still think about this movie. It's really, really good.
Dang. Okay. I got to check that out.
Yeah, I think you'd really like it
when that drops on streaming. That and Petite Maman.
For sure. Yep. So yeah, that one a little longer than I wanted it to, but those are my best new watches of May, and we can get into our best rewatches.
All right. Well, I'll make up for it here because this is going to be super short. They're both Tom Cruise. They're both Tom Cruise rewatches. Those were the only rewatches that I had this month were Tom Cruise related.
Sure.
So Collateral and The Last Samurai. I just think they're both solid, like for their era and what Tom brings to it. I just think they're both pretty good, and I had a good time rewatching them. And yeah, just as we mentioned on the Tom Cruise episode, there's just like a built-in level of quality where it's not going to suck, and he gives his all so much, and he's a damn good actor. So it's like, yeah, I got to admit they were pretty entertaining. So Collateral and The Last Samurai were my two best rewatches of the month.
Awesome. So for me, another one was a Tom Cruise movie, A Few Good Men.
Oh, yes. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'd never seen that. So
this is one of the movies, A Few Good Men at one point in my life was my favorite movie. It's now, I rewatched it and put it back in my top 100. It was kind of weird where like I hadn't watched it for a long time and then just sort of didn't include it in like one of my big lists for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think I just had it as like a 4, even though like it used to be my favorite. And then I don't know what happened really. Yeah. I think I was like, oh, this movie's probably not as good as I remember it. And then I rewatched it and it absolutely is. It's just fantastic. And then the other one that I wanted to actually talk about though was I rewatched Hot Fuzz.
Yes. Oh, yes. You had mentioned that. I had forgotten, and you said you were going to talk about it on the next roundup.
Yeah. So basically, I watched this for the first time I think like in college with you guys. And I think, I was just going through a phase of like, if it's a popular comedy, it probably sucks.
Yeah, which
is often true.
Which is often true, especially in that era. But
I think I went into it with like just I think I had just kind of made up my mind going into the first time I watched Hot Fuzz. And I rewatched it this month and bumped it up from a 3 to a 4. Yeah. It's a very good comedy.
Yes. And damn right it is.
Yeah, the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost duo. I still think what is the other one? The World's End.
And Shaun of the Dead. That's like
I still think The World's End is a bit of a miss, but Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely my least favorite of the trilogy, but yeah, no, I
super underrated one though.
When I rewatched it and saw you had it 3, I'm like, there's got to be an explanation here because there's too many good jokes and like the cameos. I mean, Olivia Colman and like I was like, there's too much for Nate to like here. There's no way.
Yeah, really underrated one from that duo though is Paul, in my opinion.
Oh yes,
I really like Paul.
Needs a rewatch. I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah, but yeah, those were my 2 best rewatches. I thought you would enjoy that. I can definitely say that I like Hot Fuzz now.
Oh, gosh, yes, that really takes a weight off, a burden. I was carrying. I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have a deep talk with Nate about why he doesn't like Hot Fuzz and why he's wrong. And now I don't have to anymore, so I can focus on the other movies that I still need to do that with. Like,
also I rewatched The Nice Guys for like the 10th time and showed it to 2 people again who hadn't seen it before, and they loved it. It's just an amazing comedy.
Nice. That's a kind of a good. That would be like a good kind of buddy comedy double feature there.
Well, we did do a buddy comedy double feature, but I will get into what the other one was because it was a movie I hadn't seen before, and I will mention it in our last category. But
okay,
nice. Want to move on to dud of the month?
I can happily say that I really did not have a dud this month. Everything was at least a 3.5 for me.
Awesome.
This month. So I'm just gonna breeze right on past and say no real duds.
Well, I had one, and we reviewed it, and that was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, for me, it was a huge dud. We have a whole spoiler review out for it if people want to hear our full thoughts on it, but did not care for that one. Probably, in my opinion, I think one of the worst Marvel movies, but
you know what? I got to be honest. When I was looking through on Letterboxd, I must not have logged it. So I didn't even see that it was theirs. And then I actually had forgotten that we had even seen that this month.
Well, there you go.
So that actually was my dud of the month. Thank you for reminding me. But also, like, God, that's a condemnation that I literally forgot I even saw that movie this month.
Really is.
I was really looking forward to it, and it's just not even a real thing to me.
No.
It's just such a nothing.
Yeah. Just in and out of my life so quickly. The amount of time I spent like thinking about and waiting for that movie to come out versus the amount of like energy I put into thinking about it since I saw it is just, it's huge. Huge difference.
Yeah. All right.
But that gets to the last category, which is just the miscellaneous. Anything else you want to bring up?
All right, so I've just got 3, but I'm going to go through them quick. The first one is Blow from 2001.
Oh, nice.
This was part of my Ray Liotta little mini marathon. He plays.
I forgot he was in that.
Yes, he plays Johnny Depp's dad, Boston George Jung. And I got to say, the reason why I have it on here is something I want to talk about. You know, that movie, a lot of people, when it came out, a lot of people loved it because it's Johnny Depp and a bunch of cocaine and partying and money. And I get it. I get all that. I honestly think that Ray Liotta and Johnny Depp's portrayal of that father-son relationship, and especially like Ray Liotta as like the coolest dad you could hope for if that was your line of work. Like he's very much like, I don't like what you're doing, but like I got your back 100%. Like, like that was honestly, I think that's the best part of that movie. I think Ray Liotta and Johnny Depp, the father-son thing, is the best part of that movie. I think the scenes where they're just talking in the kitchen or whatever over the phone are the best scenes in the movie. And I just wanted to say that for Ray Liotta's
I think it's funny that you mentioned like kind of the reasons that people were into it, like the drugs and Johnny Depp and all that stuff. The things I remember about that movie are the Johnny Depp and his dad, like now that you mention it, even though I'd kind of forgotten that Ray Liotta was in it. Yeah. And then just like all the early California stuff. And then the stuff with his daughter. Like the middle stuff with, like, honestly, most of the stuff with Penelope Cruz, I don't think is that great.
Yeah, just it's a long fall. Like, while you kind of see it coming. But yeah, no, I really like the stuff on the beach too. Like when they're just teenagers hanging out, like that was funny. And also, I will say that I think this is one of my favorite Johnny Depp performances. I just think that like the time and like he just fit that character so well, and you know he kind of got played out like later in his career, but I just think at that moment, like I was like, oh yeah, Johnny Depp was like born to play like this guy with like the long hair and everything. So yeah, that's the first one. The second thing is another Ray Liotta, and this is actually one of his first movies ever and his first big breakout. He was nominated for a Golden Globe for this. This is 1986's Something Wild. That's starring Jeff Daniels, Melanie Griffith, and Ray Liotta. Basically, it's also directed by Jonathan Demme, if you recognize that name. But basically, it's a comedy, crime, romance. A free-spirited woman kidnaps a yuppie for a weekend of adventure, but the fun quickly takes a dangerous turn when her ex-convict husband shows up. So Ray Liotta plays the ex-convict husband, and I had to watch it to see that, and he is really like. He's like a young, like a tougher James Dean. Like he's got the tight white shirt, and like the jeans and the boots and the slick back hair, and he's just a badass. Like I immediately was like, oh, it's so obvious that this guy was going to be a star. Like it's so obvious. And he has a really good death scene at the end that I was like, wow, that's one of the best ones I've seen in a long time. So I just wanted to give another shout out to Ray Liotta, very young Ray Liotta, if you want to see that. And also kind of a fun movie. Melanie Griffiths, I'd never really seen any of her work, but she is like quite the leading woman. But yeah, that was a really fun time. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention on Netflix the new season of Love, Death, and Robots.
Oh,
Episode 2 is called Bad Traveling with 2 L's. It's directed by David Fincher. It's 21 minutes long, and it's just really, really good. It's sharp writing, cool CGI, a really cool and scary monster, and you got like a lot of psychological stuff going on. Like, it makes you think. It's just really well done. I cannot recommend it enough. 21 minutes long. Bad Traveling, episode 2 of the newest season of Love, Death, and Robots.
All right. So I've got 2 movies that I wanted to mention here in sort of the miscellaneous category. The first one is another movie. It's actually the first movie that I saw at the Minneapolis Film Festival. It's a French movie called Happening. And Annie, a bright young student, is facing an unwanted pregnancy in 1960s France when abortion is still illegal.
Oh, okay. Yep, you had mentioned.
And this came out like the same weekend as the Supreme Court leak. And it could not have been more relevant when it came out. And this is just, there was a movie that came out a couple of years ago that we reviewed called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always.
Yes.
And they're different movies. They're both very real, but Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is just more about like the difficulties of being this young and having to jump through these hoops and having to go to places that might be dangerous. And Happening definitely has some of that, but it's a lot more about the personal journey of the main character and like not that Never, Rarely isn't. The main character in Happening attempts a lot more dangerous stuff.
Methods.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And you very much watch her try them.
Okay.
It's not for the faint of heart. It's a phenomenal performance. She's in the scene, or she's on camera, like I think the entire movie.
Wow.
Ana Maria Bartolome, I think is her name. She's fantastic. And I try not to use this too much, but it is an important movie and it's really well done and really well acted. And I would definitely recommend people check that out. And then the other one, for a complete tonal shift here, the other movie that I watched as part of a double feature sort of buddy cop comedies or whatever with The Nice Guys.
Yeah.
So I had seen The Nice Guys and my friends Jeff and Morgan had not seen it. So then after we watched that, they showed me a comedy that they loved that I had never seen, which was The Naked Gun.
Oh, the original one.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. What'd you think?
It's so funny.
It's right. It's so funny.
I like
it holds up so well.
I like it better than Airplane.
Okay. Yeah. That's bold, but I can see it. I mean, they're right there. They're 1-2 punch right there.
There just felt like there was more of a plot to me in The Naked Gun, even if it's not that important. Yeah. Airplane is just it's just silliness all the time. And I feel like I can just watch like 5 minutes randomly of Airplane with like no context and get all the jokes, which is fine. Okay. You can probably do that with Naked Gun too, but, or as well, I should say, because there is a Naked Gun too.
Naked Gun too. Yes.
But it's just so funny. And also because I like a lot of like buddy cop comedies and like cop movies and crime movies, it just makes fun of a lot of those. And so I felt like I got a lot of the even like very specific jokes. Sometimes they just like move the camera in a certain way or use what's there and what's not as a joke, and specific to like cop movies and like that I understood enough of. And it was just really funny and really enjoyable. And I'm very glad that I finally watched it.
Yeah. Leslie Nielsen, underrated comedic actor. I mean,
he's also in like most of The Naked Gun, which he's not in nearly as much of Airplane. And that might've been the biggest difference for me. And just also all the baseball stuff in the last like half hour.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
It's yeah. I don't want to ruin any of the lines by trying to have them.
Oh yes, no, I don't even remember very many lines.
If I would have caught, or if I would have realized that you had never seen that, I probably would have suggested that you watch it sooner, just because the baseball stuff at the end. But yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you watched that.
So am I.
All right. So that's it for you then?
That is it for me.
All right. Well, me as well. And I believe it's my turn to put a wrap on the show.
It is.
All right. A surgeon never kills a patient. An anesthesiologist can kill a patient, but a surgeon never can.